Hello. Have to see who we have in the crowd. Okay, good to see. Are we the last ones before lunch? No? Yes? We are? Stick with us. I hope it's going to be relevant and interesting for you, and then you're going to get the food. We are gathered here not to wed anyone, but actually talk about quite an interesting topic. And I particularly like the second part of our title of the panel, which is Rethinking Early Stage Success. And today here within the panel we have two actually amazing speakers that both are actively and already for a while investing in early stage startups, sometimes very, very early, right? So Jana here represents a very cool, I think cool named fund. When I first read it, I was like, Pretty Awesome, what does that, like, opossum, what is it? And then actually in her LinkedIn it says it's like, comes from pretty awesome. So you're combining the, like, is it fun and capital, or kind of what's your thesis?
Well, pretty awesome is precious in Latin, so we invest in awesome founders and their precious ideas, and besides it sounds pretty awesome. So capital means awesome, and we do invest in AI and fintech infrastructure super early, so pre-seed, seed, and sometimes is basically when the idea is being formed.
Mm-hmm. And you also, in terms of geography, you cover mostly UK and US, right? So you're kind of sitting in two seats. Which area in US?
US can be everywhere. So for example, sometimes a company is could be actually based in Turkey, but they incorporated in Delaware, and then the plan is to move to the US. And so that's basically also could be a fit.
And also Jana happens to be the only general partner of her funds, and maybe we'll talk a little bit. I think it's already challenging to be a woman leading a fund, but when you are the only one or the sole one who makes sometimes decisions or runs the processes, I guess it's a tough world out there, no?
It was tough to start, but it's great.
Cool. Thanks, Jana. And there we have Cristobal. Actually, we used to work together at Startup Wise Guys Accelerator Fund, which maybe is known already also in Turkey, because there have been multiple, actually, how many Turkish investments?
26, 27.
26, 27 investments in Turkey. And now Cristobal represents a new fund. It's called Wolf Ventures. Want to tell us a little bit more what the Wolves do?
Yeah, Wolves. Basically, we evolving from our first fund in cybersecurity and defense, and creating two separate funds, early stage still. One cybersecurity focused, financial technologies, critical infrastructure, and the other one basically defense, dual usage robotics. One of them is mostly focused on the Spanish market or coming to the Spanish market. The other one is frontier markets in Eastern Europe, from basically all the way from Nordics all the way to Turkey.
Mm-hmm. So if we look at the geography, we are very well covered, right? So we have UK, US, and here we have Europe, also including kind of countries that are not yet part of European Union, but that are expanding and doing things in Europe. Okay, and your both funds are actively investing right now. So if anybody is a founder here, you can actually find Cristobal and Jana after the speech, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Let's see. When we think about success in startups and the decision making, I've seen kind of I would say, especially when AI became predominant, a lot of funds were developing their own AI kind of decision-making machines and infrastructure of how to actually get the best data, how to scrape data, but also how to do the decision-making in terms of startup investments. So which startup to choose? How is it with you? I sometimes think that people talk a lot about data, but it's actually the gut, especially of experienced investors, that help them, especially in a very, very early stage when there's not that many metrics. So what is your approach to making decisions and in giving funding to the startups?
That's a great question. I have my friends, they started the fund called Quantum Light, but they invest in more like growth stage, and they actually use a lot of data and metrics and how they make investment decisions. When it comes to the early stage, it's a bit of like wild, wild west. You do need to invest in really the right people who can make things happen. So if you have an idea which is more the most narrow and the most niche idea, that's the best to start with, because basically then later on you build a product and then you can expand and actually build a whole company out of it. So basically you just invest in the right people, like mostly technical founders that build tech before. They work, let's say, for example, in big companies, and then you partner with them super early, and then it's a lot of it is a gut feel, indeed. So it's just the more founders you speak to, and the more you see it, the more what they have done before, and then how did they grow up, and then what really bothers them, and then why. Sometimes it's all about the mindset as well, how you approach different like problems. For example, I'm investing just sent a term sheet today in one company, and then I've seen a couple of similar companies in the space. But these guys, they hustled a lot. They moved from the Europe to the US. They found customers, so they didn't really. They were looking at how to get things done instead of like what are the constraints to get things done. And so a lot of that is about the mindset and experience, and then the speed of execution.
Thanks. I actually work as a pitch coach, so I work with hundreds of founders that are preparing for fundraising, and often they're very preoccupied of not having the right answers. And I always say, actually show investors how you think, even if you don't have a ready-made answer, or your product is not that far, or your traction is not that far. So thanks. That confirms my gut feeling, but still gut, right?
And also I think the most important part, like for startups to realize, we do invest in people, and your idea will change multiple times. And so I think it's 90% of the time, 95% of the time, or 99 even, like the idea will change. And so what you started with, and then what you will pivot and pivot again, it will be completely different. So you just start, and you start something, and something will happen.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. Defensibility has changed dramatically. Before you could create an idea, product, and maybe you could defend it for 6 months, 9 months. Now, likely in 1 week, somebody else can copy it, right? Of course, you can have data models. So I think the adaptability part and the dealing with uncertainty, being able to constantly evolve, being able to say, I'm looking at the metrics, it's not working, we need to move. I think it has changed a lot. So when looking at the founders, I think we're looking at that capacity to adapt. So before they were talking about ambition, I think that's very important. I think the second one, maybe the AI part, we're more interested about how they're using AI. So I think I don't want to create unicorns with one employee. I actually find it boring. But it's true that you can actually manage much smaller teams to get much farther. And I think it's understanding how they leverage new tools. But at the end of the day, how they're going to lead these companies. Yeah, you're going to use all these technologies. We have a lot of these technical people, but can these people lead a company, lead a 1 million, 10 million, 30 million revenue? Can they lead teams of 5, 10, 20? And I think that is the gut part that I think we have. That's what makes the job fun, is actually being able to assess these things that data cannot tell you. It can give you hints, it can give you direction, but this is about founders. And they were talking before a lot about the US, Europe, and I think one of the key things is diversity. Sorry to say US is not diverse. We are way more diverse in Europe because by nature we have different nationalities, age, genders, constantly evolving, right? And I think it's being able to have how the diversity play into building an amazing team. It's the second part that we try all the time. And it's going way more, oh, you have male and female. No. It's way more, do they think differently? Can they, that is an adaptability trait. And I think looking at that constantly, I think makes the job very interesting, and these teams stand out more than others.
I want to rewind a little bit back to what you said about this leadership capacity. So you said that it's very important to see that the founder that maybe starts with 2 co-founders and then grows maybe into 100 people company or even bigger. How can you detect that? Is there any signs or any characteristics or any personality types that you see and you're like, there, that's the one?
Well, sometimes it's good to be delusional. Be delusional. So
that comes with the ambition, no?
So we do invest in boring, but also, but it calls like more infrastructure. But in reality, you do invest in people with crazy ideas. And the more crazy ideas you have, the better maybe the chance of success. I mean, there is also a high chance of failure, but if you will succeed, you will succeed big time. And then I remember one company invested at pre-seed. Again, the idea has changed so many times. And then the founder said, I want, he mentioned a very big guy from the US on his board. And I was like, well, it's not going to happen. But funny enough, a couple of years passed by and I realized it's actually happening. So he attracts really good people. He just got Series A done. And sometimes it's about like believing in yourself and never, ever giving up. And then I think once you have this standard or high plank, who you want to attract in your team, it actually, like it all comes together. And it comes with like, high plank, it comes to your branding, it comes to your, even doesn't matter B2B or B2C, it really comes to what's your voice of your company. And then the more and more I see that, it's about who you are and your high standards, but at the same time iterating fast and be like delusional and be more like going after bolder ideas and bigger is a bad so.
Delusional was not the key word I was expecting on this answer.
Yeah.
But thanks, Jana. Cristobal, how do you detect this kind of potential for leadership early on?
I think it's about doing. A lot of people is thinking about due diligence on the industrial way or in the product side, and I think it's about doing a way more personal due diligence. This means sometimes you meet the founder way before they even fundraising. I said, I like it, don't like it, give them feedback. You want to see how 6 months later they're able to come back to you with that feedback that you gave them. Is talking to the market about what you think about this person. I think also when they come with the team, it's about challenging them and seeing how they react in the calls. Do they involve the team? Do they defend their team? So I think there is a number of hints there about leadership. I think there is a lot of basically using your network to find out more about the founders. But again, you are not looking at how good is their product, how good is their tech. It's about how good are they as a founder. They have worked with some people before, they have direct reports, they have bosses, they're in the market, etc. And maybe I think the last one is how professional they are in their interactions. And I see a lot of founders who are just unable to follow up on a proper email, on a proper LinkedIn, on a proper interaction, or even specifically on a proper tough feedback. You tell them, this was a piece of shit, but let me explain you why, and you explain it to them. Some of them become defensive, some of them stop talking to you, some of them very quickly says, that's great, let me think about it. And so I say next day, by the way, we just tested this with a customer. We asked them, and I said they work with a customer because it's not just going to a lab and coding with AI. It's talking to a customer, implementing the functionality, getting some feedback, said, hey, that actually works, right? So to me, it's also the way their professionalism on the reaction, on the interactions are, it gives you good hints. And then is the second part. We put the small tickets usually, right? The key thing is, do you put a bigger ticket afterwards? And this is the most difficult job of a GP, which is, in the last 6, 9, 12 months interaction, is this person performing as you expecting them as a leader? The metrics are there in many of them, but can these guys raise the next round? Can these guys lead a larger company, or you need to throw out your investment? And that is it's your babies. It's very difficult to take yourself away from them, right? And I think this is where I don't envy your part of the job, being solo GP, because I think that's very always when we manage the team, right? We are very biased. Whoever tells you we are not biased is bullshit. We're all biased, right? So I think having different people in the room that might have with different opinions, with different interactions, is a very valid way to be challenged about the founders, how the team is doing, or how other external parties. And also when you talk to the VCs that might invest later, you ask them, what do you think? And it's very interesting to see what do they think. It's like, and if you control yourself and don't try to defend your founder or try to give them points, they give you a lot of cues also about what the founders are doing well and what they're not doing well. Right?
Thanks, Cristobal. I think that you emphasized a very important thing, if there are founders in the room, about the long-term game here. That it's not like you pitch one time and somebody throws money at you, but actually that this kind of interaction is observed in a long term, and also it doesn't stop when the investment has been done. There's actually, this is kind of very, very long process, and I've even heard, I think it was you probably that said at some point that you have to choose your investors as careful as you choose your spouse, because you're going to be married to the investors for quite a while. Jana, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think it's very important, like the quality of communication. The best founders are the ones who actually reply within 1 or 5 minutes. I mean, it sounds very harsh, but lots of people, some people take so much time to reply, sometimes a day time, whereas the most successful founders, they're constantly online, they constantly are very much easy to access and quicken their communications, and they're very transparent. And the second part, funny enough, the more feedback you give them, or like sometimes the founders who always ask their investors for feedback, it's maybe sometimes not the right founders, because of if you have a vision and you know what you're building, so basically I'm trying to invest in those who really don't need my feedback. But it's good when they can accept some criticism and just take it into consideration. Whereas some founders, they ask all of their investors, what do you think? What do we do? What do we need to do? And this is a bit of a red flag.
So it can be kind of like a bad sign, because it seems that the people are too needy of some kind of external opinion about their business.
Yeah, and you don't...
Also, yes, contributing to that is, by the way, the same applies to venture capital, okay? There is, and to criticize ourselves, if a VC takes 3 weeks to answer you because they are too busy, it's not a good VC, right?
Or they're just not interested.
Oh, no, but to me it's also like, we take time sometimes to take an answer because we want to observe how you evolve. But we still, every interaction, we tell you what comes next. And sometimes say, I'm not investing in the next 4 months, but I really look at these things for you, and maybe we can talk. So being clear, very direct. Of course, founders, it's funny. You talk to founders, say, oh, these guys are going to invest. You call the VC, no, we just like them, we might have another call, right? So founders are optimistic by nature. But I think we need to do a much better job. And the question before about how Europe can grow, I think is by VCs being also way more professional. We need to upper our game. In the same way that we demand from founders to upper their game, we need to upper our game in ambition, in professionalism, in response, in networking with other VCs. I think we can do a much better job to help create great companies. So I think we need to start complaining to them. And also, LPs are asking for it. Says, what are my returns, base? You guys came here with all these promises 5 years ago. Where is my DPI? What are my returns? So I think we need to also look at how can we do a much better job to help the founders create much better companies.
Which is quite interesting, but at the same time, you and I are also founders, like founders of funds, and we also need to raise money the same as like startups. We go to investors, we ask for money, and it's the same process, and sometimes even more painful process. And what I've learned is, if you need to ask for a couple of times, it's better. It's not your right LP, and the same as for startups. And so what I'm teaching my companies, set a really fix a timeline about when are you planning to raise money, and then you speak to as many investors as possible within a very short period of time. So then you create pressure, and if it's not, it's not. So you're not waiting for the answer. So it's a kind of an unspoken rule. If no one is replying to you, just next. So, and then you try, and then because of basically it's a speed of execution. Whereas lots of people are getting fixated, the same as when I started to fundraise, I was very fixated to get that LP, and I realized if a person or institution is not interested, they will not come in. The same for companies. If someone is ghosting you, it's no, move on.
Yeah.
There are plenty of really amazing investors out there.
Actually, one of the best sales advice I've always heard is always don't aim for the yes, aim for the no. And the sooner you can remove that contact from your pipeline, the more you can actually focus on the ones that really are worth your attention. As we're reaching the end of our conversation, I actually wanted to ask you quite a controversial question. You were talking a lot about professionalism and generally being nice people, but often it's the assholes who actually make it, It's actually the people who are blunt, who actually might not reply to the answers and so on. And secondly, there's another stereotype that I've heard quite a lot, is that the truly great, successful founders actually don't need investors, or they need investors way later on. So what do you think about the assholes and bootstrapping?
Well, the same as what I mentioned, it's unspoken rule. Someone is not replying, no, move on. Don't waste your time. Don't get fixated on people. Your people will stick to you. And so sometimes, again, as if a company is not replying, you have a call and then I follow up. Maybe it was not the right fit. So a founder doesn't want me on a cap table, and vice versa. If I'm not replying, well, sometimes it happens, sorry. So it means no, right? And it's unspoken rule. It says no hard feelings. And I think this is a definition sometimes of emotional intelligence. You move on. You don't stick. And it's business.
Okay.
No, I think everybody has their own book, right? So I'm not judging others. I'm just going very clear. We invest in founders who want to create great companies. I don't want to invest in unicorns. I am a firm believer that if you build a good company, money will come, customers, revenues, etc. I'm also a firm believer that if you are a great company, you can get great talent on very early. Of course, you have done 5 companies and raised millions. A lot of people want to work for you. But overall, for first-time founders or second-time founders, the first time didn't go well, aim at building companies that last. Be a leader that people want to follow, because you know what? Your customer will want to work with you. Your investors will want to work with you. Hey, if you're an asshole, you cannot change that. Good luck to you. Maybe you make it great. And hey, most of the great guys in the book, some of them are assholes, and that's fine. But I think try to create a great company. I think that is, because maybe even if you're not successful on the exit, you will be successful creating employment, creating role models, or getting investors to invest in you next time, because you actually led properly. Sometimes people close the company properly, down the right way, with the right communication with investors, with the processes. So be a good leader and try to build a great company. I think it's much better than just chases money, ego, and fame. I think that's mostly doesn't work. But
So basically, to wrap it up, so be a bit delusional and crazy, be professional, but also don't wait forever on a yes. If there's no answer, then it's a no, and think beyond just investment chasing. That building companies, especially in Europe, has bigger ripple effects than just the valuations, than just the investment rounds and so on. Actually, it's what kind of building an ecosystem where everybody can thrive is what matters. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Cristobal. Thank you, audience. Let's go eat.
Thank you, Zane.